I am pleased to present Pete Ring. Pete, you and I have known each other a long time in a bunch of roles.
Yep.
I mean, you're just kind of like one of the Marvel superheroes, just different capes, different days, right?
I'm not going to say that, but if you do, I'll allow it.
There you go. Pete, you did a presentation in the NPI this week on behalf of Thommen. What's the latest and greatest there? Let's start there, and then we'll talk a little bit about the industry, especially since you cover this industry in great depth.
Yeah, well, appreciate that. Well, Thommen's an interesting company. They've been around for a very long time, dating back to the early 1900s, actually. And getting their start in the avionics world by making the first chronograph for the Swiss Air Force in 1916. So they've been around a long time.
That's serious time and grade.
It's a lot of history there. Mm-hmm. They've been very successful throughout the years with the mechanical instruments, and they went into the digital age, and have had tremendous success with air data computers for all different types of aircraft, from fixed wing rotorcraft, fast jets, and everything in between. We're in the process of pivoting the business a little bit and getting a little bit more involved into the display replacement business of taking CRT displays and upgrading them to LCD displays. And it's not just CRTs that we're doing. There's a lot of legacy LCDs out there as well that are still good avionics that need some refreshing because of the display on the front. For either there's an obsolescence issue with the display, or it's broken and it can't be supported anymore. But the technology in the unit is still good and still viable, so we've defined a plan in order to be able to upgrade those units and continue to have the aircraft be airworthy. And it's a fraction of a cost compared to doing a new panel upgrade, and we're talking not the lower end of the market, but in your business jets and up even into your commercial aviation type stuff, where cost becomes an issue for this. It can be millions of dollars to put a new panel on one of those, and updating the unit with LCD is going to be a fraction of that price.
It's an interesting company with an interesting history. I remember getting a briefing several years ago where they're looking at the deep dark history way back when, and it's amazing that a company that started with that kind of vision winds up in so many different avenues now. Where do you see Thommen going from here?
Well, I think with the display business, and a lot of that display capabilities is done in-house, so they're one of the few companies that actually has an ability to cut LCD in-house.
Really?
They can actually take the commercial LCD and custom cut it to any specific size that the customer requires. So I see that display replacement business gaining traction. I also see Thommen creating more native complete solution products around the display world in the MFD replacement business. There's a lot of there's still CRT radar indicators out there, and
oops.
Yeah. yeah. So having replacements for those, there's not a lot of companies that make just a dedicated MFD that has radar capabilities anymore. So there's some white space in the market, and I think there's a good opportunity there. There's in-trail operations for ADS-B for the airlines where they need dedicated displays for that, and we're starting to bid some programs into that market as well. So there's a lot of things revolving around the display capabilities of the business that I think are growth opportunities for Thommen.
Imagine it's quite an educational process to deal with clientele that may not be fully aware or want to be fully aware of some of the failure modes and longevity issues with technology that has been okay working so far. And that's a great thing until all of a sudden, blip.
Yeah, and the good thing is CRTs have done a lot of that work for us in terms of failing periodically for everybody at some point. So that's anybody that's flown with CRTs.
Quite a few of us have that story.
Yes. Yeah, so the CRTs with their failures, it makes it easier when you go, well, we can replace it with an LCD, and you see that light bulb go off, and it immediately makes that connection for you.
And especially when you start looking at comparative mean time between failures, weight, maintenance costs.
Weight's a huge one.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
It's
and power consumption.
Oh boy, yeah, there you go.
Yep.
That didn't come to mind, but the minute you said, boing, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Interesting.
We've got a buyer right here.
Well, it sounds like you've got yourself a big niche to work on. That's going to be fun to watch and see what areas you pioneer in that regard. What are the questions that are coming up? What is you think the biggest areas you have to overcome in order to bring this kind of technology to a potential client?
So the technology is, doing this sort of work is it's fairly straightforward. I've been a part of a lot of programs throughout the years that have been highly technical in terms of designing things that don't exist. But LCD technology has been around for a while, and
Vapor tech.
yeah, it's pretty good stuff. So the technology to actually do it is fairly easy. The challenge becomes on the certification side of things to get things on board. But we've done quite a bit of research and talked to a lot of folks that are substantially smarter than I am, and they've assured me that this can be done and have laid out what that path looks like in order to make that happen.
Much of the avionics world right now is being imperiled, if you will, by supply chain issues. How is Thommen doing in that regard?
The nice thing is, a lot of the supply chain issues are for a lot of the manufacturers. A lot of the avionics manufacturers are manufacturers here in the U.S. Thommen is a manufacturer that's in Europe, so it's using a completely different supply chain pool. And we've had minor issues, honestly. We've gone from...
there are a bunch of people really jealous of you right now.
Yeah, the worst it really got was about 9 weeks for us. And it's
that's a blip on the radar, man,
yeah, it's
compared to some of these. Like, oh yeah, talk to us next year. Yeah, no.
That's been a common discussion walking around here with other manufacturers in the dealer network too, and they can't get product to serve their customers.
Oof. That's it's been a tough bit for the industry, to say the least. We've been, we had 2.5 years of okay, what's next, followed by the economy trying to ramp up and coming up against certain roadblocks and other issues that are coming up, and changes in the regulatory environment, now changes in the regulators, and so forth and so on. So it's we're kind of waiting for things to smooth out, and it just won't quite let us get there yet.
Yep, absolutely.
Oof, crazy. What's your observation on this particular show? You've been a big part of a lot of different aspects of this industry. What are you seeing right now?
I'm seeing a lot of people really getting focused on the connectivity side for the aircrafting. Not just, largely connectivity has been an airline and a business jet thing, but you're starting to see that sort of trickle down into, your turboprops and your twin engines, and even some corner cases of a high performance piston single guy, if they've got the money, is willing to do it. So I think that's for this industry, barring any unforeseen government issued regulations. I think there's going to be a big push into that market, and we're already seeing it. That's what shops are busy doing.
Yeah.
Those companies that produce those products are having overwhelming success. There's still a place for display services and new displays in the marketplace with everything that you see across the board. And there's some really cool things out here. But the guys that have pretty big crowds in their booth are the guys that have the connectivity and have the cabin displays. And there's some sexy displays that are here for the cabin display companies, and they're doing some innovative things that are kind of interesting to see.
Interesting stuff. At various times, you've had a role in AEA itself, played a pivotal role in a couple of cases. How do you see the health of the organization?
I think the organization's going in a new direction, and it feels like there's a new, renewed energy within the organization. And you're starting to see more things and seeing more effort put into the workforce side of the organization, with committees being formed for the workforce committee to not only get younger folks more involved in aviation, but get people from adjacent industries that have similar skills and get them involved in aviation. And I think there's a big push for that. The energy feels good. I think the future looks bright, and I think we're just starting at the very beginning of where this industry is going in the future. And I think it's up and to the right, and going to be shocking a lot of people with some of the innovations that come in terms of market access and reaching new technologies, especially with the UAS market coming online. UAS is largely electric.
It's insane.
Yeah.
There are two things that are affecting the industry. One is the fact that there could be a pretty strong paradigm in what we fly and how we use it. But the part that I find most immediately exciting is the fact that there are some new technologies that are in development that are filtering through to the rest of us really quickly. Yeah. I'm involved, excuse me, in flight test on a couple of these vehicles right now, and I mean, every time I show up for pre-brief and this, that, and the other, I'm just kind of going, okay, what did you do this time? And it's extraordinary. It really is. I mean, there isn't anything that isn't up for grabs right now.
Yeah.
That's
well, and it's interesting too. Like every 10, 15 years, there's a new big thing that happens in aviation. Whether it's the UAS stuff right now. A handful of years ago, it was the VLJs. And while the VLJ thing didn't exactly go the way everyone sort of predicted it at the very beginning of it, with darkening the skies with so many jets everywhere, but there was a lot of technology that came out of there.
Big time.
There was innovation that came out of there, and a lot of that stuff gets applied into other segments of this marketplace. And by and large, I think we're going to see a lot of that in the UAS marketplace, where you'll see there's a lot of good narrative around it. There's a lot of money being spent into that, which means there's a lot of innovation that's happening into that marketplace. And you'll see a lot of great technology that comes out of that marketplace that may not be just in the unmanned segment, maybe in new ways of doing the manned segment, new ways of doing remote control operations and various different things.
I think in terms of aircraft control and control systems, I think we're going to see stuff that's just going to boggle the mind.
Yep.
Really going to be something. Pete, I got to tell you, I always enjoy a chance to chat with you, even though it's been few and far between lately.
My pleasure.
Especially when you're out getting a real job and stuff. So do what you got to do. But at least you're playing with great toys, so that doesn't hurt at all.
Yeah.
Pete Ring, who has been a big part of the AEA community, now representing Thommen.
News Network's coverage of the 65th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from New Orleans, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors: